Well, Bob, it's that time again. We've started a bit of a tradition here now.
We have.
New release of Octopus is available. 2024.3 is now available, which is awesome. So we thought we'd gather again and talk about it. Any overall sort of feelings about this release?
I'm super excited for this release. This is something I have been looking forward to for our self-hosted customers for some time, mostly because when I talk to a self-hosted customer and they show me their instance, I just realize how jarring it is compared to the new one, especially with the new navigation, the new auto-scaling worker, everything. It feels like almost like a completely different version of Octopus at this point.
So let's go through some of the features here. So you'll find this listed on our website. This is at octopus.com/what's new. We're not going to talk about the new features for Octopus Cloud because these tend to ship earlier. But if we scroll down, you can see it's listed here. So the first one is optimize infrastructure use with our auto-scaling worker that Octopus manages for you. So this is all about doing deployments to Kubernetes clusters. We did recently a webinar about this, which was hosted by a couple of members of the team, where they talk about how this works. Trent and Kit were talking about this at detail, and I thought we would just talk a little bit about this. So we have an instance here of how to set this up. You'll find this under the Workers tab. This is the new UI as well, by the way, so we'll talk a little bit about this in a second.
Yeah.
But if you look at this this screen here, you'll see we can add a new Kubernetes cluster, and we'll basically walk you through the series of steps to set this up. So this is really nice if you're wanting to set this up and deploy it to a cluster.
Yeah, what I think one of the really cool things why I'm so excited by this is because for a significant number of our customers, they encounter situations where their deployments are often very bursty. So they might be doing a lot of deployments during, say, a production deployment window at night, or they might be doing a lot of deployments maybe in the afternoon for whatever reason. And oftentimes what they have to do is they would have to spin up all of these additional workers to support those deployments and then have a mechanism to scale them back down. And it just makes things so much harder to manage because it's just extra work that you don't really need to do. With this, as you can see on the screen, we're auto-scaling the workers essentially. So if you need more, you get more because it looks like every single task is going to be executed in a separate pod at that point.
Right. And so when setting this thing up, obviously you have to install it with the necessary CSI driver. And also we provide the Helm, obviously, instructions for this. So first things first, we install the NFS CSI driver. Then after that, we install the worker via Helm as well. I'm not going to go ahead and do that. But obviously we walk you through the process, which is really nice.
Yeah, I set this up this afternoon, and it probably took, I want to say, about 3-4 minutes to get it running on my AKS cluster. So pretty easy.
All right, jumping back to the list. Improvements to the Helm upgrade step for simpler setup. This is actually the deploy a Helm chart step. It's been renamed. It was renamed in 2024.1. So it is classically known as the Helm upgrade step, but it is the deploy Helm chart step, which is here. And so what we've listed here is for advanced templating, you sometimes need to reference multiple files in one Helm command. Octopus already works with multiple files, values files, and we approved the Helm upgrade step so that it has smart selection for Helm values sources. This makes it easier to add and reorder multiple values files. If you want to read more about this, you can check it out on our docs. Our docs are pretty extensive for this, around this step, which is for deploying a Helm chart, which is also listed here. So you can see that there's a bunch of options here for values, for template values in particular. So those options are available to you now in 2024.3. Fantastic. This one, Bob, you want to show off more secure Git workflows with Git protection rules. Sounds cool. What is this?
Yeah, so let's walk through a bit of a scenario. So maybe with your feature branches, you want to be able to create a release for a particular channel. So if you want to show my screen, I can actually show you what I have set up. So I have 2 different channels on my screen. I have the default channel, and this is for any sort of feature work. And this only goes to development. And then once I feel good about that particular feature, then I'll go ahead and submit a pull request that merges into main. And then only main will go through the release channel. That's one of the rules that I want to have in place. Now, I've enforced this for some time within my build server, but one of the challenges could be is when I create a release, I could have the capability to go ahead and overwrite that. I could have main go to my default branch. But what we have now is now we have these channel rules that are available that now allow us to enforce this within the project itself. So in order for me to create something for my default channel, I need to pick a feature branch. And so then it will say, yep, everything looks good. And the way that you configure that is you go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and discard those changes, and you come into your channels, and now you'll see a brand new option called Get Protection Rules. And I already have my project repository already set up. And so I just specified feature star, and it told me all of the branches and tags it was going to match on, and everything looked good for me. So then I went ahead and saved it. And I did the exact same thing for my channels for my release. And I say only the main channel. I do like this nice little help tag. I was a little curious about that if I needed to do refs heads main, but it just said, nope, just got to type in main. I was like, perfect. That's all I needed to do. So very easy to set up. Again, I set this up probably a couple minutes, and I got it right out of the box going forward. So I'm super excited by it as well.
Fantastic. Let's stick with your UI. I'll switch back in just a second, but the next feature we want to talk about is simpler and faster navigation. So we've made a huge amount of improvements to our UI. This makes the project dashboard quicker and more customizable. And so switching back to your environment here, you can see obviously there's lots of stuff that goes in here. I've done a bunch of demos for customers, and they're like, what is this UI you're showing me? I've never seen this before.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've moved almost everything out of the top level navigation above. So if you're used to Octopus Deploy before this release, you're probably used to seeing dashboard as well as projects, tenants, library configuration, everything along those lines. That's all been moved now to this deploy menu. So if I click on it, you can see everything that we were curious about that now appears here in the left menu. And so we can see the tenants, we can see the infrastructure. So I don't have to double click. I don't have to go into, say, infrastructure, get the overview screen, and then I have to click into, say, my deployment targets. I can navigate straight to that right from here. The other big change that we made is we no longer have a difference between just the dashboard and the project screen. Now we just have one screen. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time, just because I kept getting confused for a bit of time going, okay, what functionality is available in the project screen? What functionality is available in the dashboard? Now I just have one screen I can go to. Namely, one of the big things would be around, say, import and export. I can just go to one screen, and now I got it, and I don't have to worry about any of that. You'll also notice that I have the ability to favorite certain projects. And so I've gone ahead and I've favorited my favorite projects that I use all the time. I actually only show that with because you can see I have my filters. But that will also appear in the left menu. When I click into the project itself, you can see that we've reformatted the left menu a little bit. I would say almost everything else in here has probably been fairly similar. But if I want to, I can also access that deploy menu from the project screen by just hovering over it. We have a few items still left on the leftmost menu, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. This includes the insights as well as the tasks, along with, if you're curious about where configuration is, it's just in this nice little gear. And then if you're curious about how do I switch from dark mode to light mode, or light mode back to dark mode, you just would click on your name, and there you can see it. And so that's a very brief overview of what the navigation looks like now.
I like it. And people might ask the question, why? And I think that it's pretty obvious. It's easier to grow a menu up, down versus left, right, which is what we had. And so by going up, down and putting it into a well, like we have here, we have capacity now for future category topics, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. And, honestly, with the new deploy menu, it exposes so much more. And I think it makes it much easier to discover where things are as well. Because I can't tell you the number of times I click on library and I meant to go to infrastructure because I forgot where one of the sub menus was. Like, oh man, okay, now it makes sense. I can just see it all in one place.
Sometimes there's times of the year that you may want not to do deployments and actually freeze the execution of deployments. We have a new feature, configurable deployment freezes for greater control over deployments. So deployment freezes are a new capability we have in Octopus that allow you to prevent deployments from selected projects and or environments. So you can do this across all spaces for a configured amount of time. So if we jump over to a demo here, this is my ad worker here. Coming back to that configuration section that Bob just talked about, you'll notice that there's this option here called deployment freezes. So in here, you can specify a time period, and you can say like, this is Thanksgiving, everyone's away, I don't want anyone to touch it, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this depends on where you're in, if you're in Canada or the US. But you can pick a time, you can pick a date, and then you can define a scope. You can say things like, I want this to be across only a select number of projects or certain environments, et cetera. So any comments on this?
No, I think this is something that a number of our customers have been asking for quite some time. Myself, I've actually experienced it when I worked for a bank during the holiday seasons. Basically, I think between December and January, we would only deploy if it was absolutely necessary, some sort of emergency fix, some sort of critical bug we'd have to fix, or security patch. But having the capability to prevent that from happening, but to still allow some overrides, is so powerful, and it makes things, in my mind, it's just a better overall experience. I do want to point out, though, is that this is not a recurring deployment freeze. So you can't say, I want to have a deployment freeze from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. every single day. You would have to set that up. And so this is more designed initially for those big holiday seasons like the Thanksgiving, or I want to prevent deployments during, say, the Super Bowl, because maybe you're a company that specializes in providing pizza or something, and you don't want to have any deployments during that time.
Yes, good point. That does actually play into one of the features. We're not going to talk about it here, but prioritized deployments. This is a feature that is now available in cloud, which kind of sort of relates to this idea that you can actually have priority deployments. But that's a topic we'll cover probably in the next version of Octopus. So that's a pretty cool.
And if you're on Octopus Cloud, you already have it. So, another reason to start using it.
Lastly, but not leastly, streamlined approvals for manual interventions. Manual interventions are a capability that basically allow you to halt or queue up a deployment until some human comes along and says yes. So what is this all about?
Yeah, so if you go back to my screen, I have a deployment already queued up, and I wanted to show you what this looks like, what most people are used to seeing. So I'm doing a deployment to staging, and I've created a Delta report that shows me all of the database changes that are about to go into staging. I also have notified my DBAs of pending changes, and I've paused it to let my DBAs review it, just to make sure there isn't something crazy in there like drop database or drop table that causes a DBA to have a bit of anxiety when they see something like that. Now, in the past, I had to click into here in order to see this. I had to come in here and go, I want to assign this to me. I can add the notes, everything along those lines. But now I can also come into tasks and click on needs approval, and I can assign this directly to me. And I can also just add in, I can say, go ahead and proceed. And I can do this. Imagine if I had 4 or 5 different manual interventions all queued up, and I was a DBA, I could go ahead and approve them very quickly from this screen, as opposed to having to click into each one. So it's a big time saver, especially if you're doing a lot of these style of manual interventions where you're pausing the deployment and waiting for, say, a DBA or a QA person just to review something before you can proceed on to the next step.
Love it. So there you go, 2024.3. Lots of new capabilities available. You'll find them all listed on the website at /what's new. Bob, thank you very much. Once again, no another version done. And we'll see you on the next one, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Happy deployments, everyone.
Happy deployments.